This is February 3rd, 2022's broadcast. It's when the information came over. I'm watching in February 4th, the day after. It's regarding, at this point, CBS Mornings. This woman, that's her picture. I've never heard of her before. Donated this amount to communities in schools, which they're referring to as, I just listened to the man and then I had to rewind it because now I got to make like a note of it. They're calling it a Title One. No idea what that means. But I'm sitting in a class 0 for information other than whatever this filter is trying to pronounce. And the way that the gentleman, of course it's the most heartfelt commercial for thank you. But I'm sitting in a territory in North America where this level of promotional whatever is getting really difficult. I get it was intended for good purposes, but this is getting really tricky to navigate. And I know where I've been through. I know I've been stuck, hunted, I've been trapped, I've been choked out by a uniformed officer in the local area. He wasn't wearing a uniform at the time, doesn't mean he's still not whatever. And yet I'm still left in this dangerous position while all these wonderful donations are going on to all of these increasing threats and issues that don't seem to be getting addressed. Nor has my life ever improved. But I see a whole lot of donations and charity work going on, just in some title system of I have no idea. My TIDAL volume is going off. I'm having trouble breathing. While they're arguing over title, TITLE, and I have no idea how that would even work. Where is that even relevant? I'm standing where there's a rock of strength and pillar of strength and some paper of strength that match by profile for leadership management and I need a big brother, and yet I can't even get that help.
Also known as CIS. The organization helps more than 1 million students nationwide navigate issues inside.
What nation? I'm just curious. Because they're reporting from, this particular program claims it's in New York broadcasting, the state of New York, which is on the interior of where that really important rock and that really important paper gets whatever tossed around.
Inside and outside the classroom, giving them access to things like food, housing, healthcare, and technology. Ray Saldana is CIS's president and CEO. He's also an alum of the program, so he knows what this is all about. Here's the very dramatic moment that he revealed the donation to the group's founder.
Instead of saying it out loud, I might share it and let you see it for the first time.
Now, I don't understand this. So this man who started CIS or the mission or whatever has this man now running as president and CEO. What? Counterintuitive.
That's the total.
That's the total.
I went to North American public school. I have no idea what a non-for-profit actually is, how it's run, how it started, what these whatever they're up to inside of this capability or possibility. I mean, again, There's a whole demographic here, very versed and versatile, which makes them dangerous in voting machines and weapons of mass destruction when they tell the story wrong and call in the wrong whatever. And so now this is what knows things. I still don't. I'm still being harmed in the field. And now there's this large non-for-profit sector, sector, like a dissection of the industrious revolutionaries. And so now there's a sector of that. There's a sector of for-profit. Where's my vector? How do I orientate myself? I'm just curious.
You're at home, you're in the classroom. What happened?
Yeah,
The phone.
I was in a hotel room, and as a head of a nonprofit, you're always just thinking.
In a hotel room, so he travels and he works for the nonprofit. Now he explains how, from his point of view, non-for-profits are working. In something
about
called
the
a
work, you're
Title
thinking about the
I.
people, you're thinking about the impact, and this call came out of nowhere, and they described what was this news that the head of a nonprofit, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity because you think about all of the work that you can do to
But what did
deploy
they
this.
say?
Now, how do you get picked for these nonprofits? What does it mean? Who is allowed to join a non-for-profit? How do they find their opportunity, and how do they find their opportunists? And how do they develop these nests and incubating problems or potential sources of helpfulness?
What did they say?
Well, they described that they were going to be making an unrestricted gift to our organization, and they were going to make a gift to our office and also directly to the affiliates where the work is happening every single day.
What did you think unrestricted meant?
Well, in our world, it's.
Now, is this funding those technology labs that become like farms of future engineers that are now causing Omicron variants and Delta variants and all sorts of biological and bioengineered problems? I'm just curious where the restrictions actually are in what can be developed, harnessed, and farmed. Why are certain children being allowed to pursue dangerous future career paths over several generations, while others are being held at quite a different whatever, and being held out of sight and out of vantage?
Rare. Oftentimes, when we get a gift, it's prescribed, but in this case, it meant that you've got the flexibility, and they had trust in us. And,
Wow.
And she is so,
I know, but how
forward-thinking.
much did you think it meant? You couldn't have thought it was $133 million. That's what I mean.
The upper limits of my imagination were we would be lucky if we get a $10 million gift, and that's what I had expected, and hopefully that's what I might hear.
Why do you think you were picked, your organization?
We will never know, and the team was really good about saying.
Now, is this money laundering at its like fine-tuned machine level? I'm just curious, because he was expecting, as the non-for-profit knows his sector, at $10 million. And he received 13 times that in exponential increases with like a 10 to the 13th power kind of a thing. So his power increased by 13 points, let's call it. So now, why was his power increased by 13 points, or 13 exponents, to a 10 value? How many more leaching systems and sieves are created out of that in an already broken system?
saying that what they do is a ton of research on your organization. So we were taking a test we didn't know we passed a test we didn't know we were taking.
Yeah.
Is this being able to afford by 10 to the 13th power advancing generational gap issues in funding, considering that they shouldn't have learned 2 generations ago, but they've been sneaking up and pretty much by qualification completely annihilating and removing any of the obstacles or what they might perceive as an obstacle or competition, but yet they don't have a funding source of their own. So now they're setting up for future to be able to feed and be self-reliant, which is even more frightening considering that it's already on a dangerous path, but now it's already tuned up to be even more stealth, and the unsuspecting don't even know to investigate or even look for it.
Now, when you work in a nonprofit and with a nonprofit, there's long days, short mornings. You're oftentimes very exhausted. You work in faith because you don't see the end result. What does this say about the people behind this nonprofit?
Oh gosh, I think about this from a very personal perspective because our work really is about placing.
Now remember, 10 to the 5th power is neutral, life sustaining. How did he get to 10 to the 13th power? Right there, it's a physics law break at planetary without any further confidential information having to be handed over.
A trusting adult in a school to interact. And I had a CIS staff member when I was going through school.
Really?
So I think about the 3,000 staff that we have inside schools working alongside our principals and teachers, expanding to touch more lives and impact more students. It's just incredible because that's not something you expect. You try to reach your ambition and your mission, and we want to get into every type.
I don't know what
school
that
that's serving students of
pixelation
low income, and
was.
That's me, that's my neighbors, that's my community.
If that's
And to
live
think about how difficult the last 2
interference,
years
I have no
really
idea.
puts in place the gift and how this is going to accelerate our growth.
Personally, what did it do for you, Ray?
Yeah, so I met communities in schools when I met Mrs. Reyes, and we have staff who is trained to go into schools where you work with students, and they not only build a relationship with you, they work on addressing social and emotional needs and removing barriers. And
They remove barriers. Well, that's interesting. What if those barriers were placed there specifically to slow down this exponential growth that is not life-sustaining, agreed upon, whatever? If, and only if, 10 to the 5th power was acceptable, which I can't even confirm that, why is he receiving 10 to the 13th power? And what was the proceeding or predescendant into this, whatever? What was that number? In major power shifts and power grabs in the most whatever.
first generation American, first in my family to graduate and go to college.
He's first generation American. So he's not even South American, he's not Central American, he's not North American. He's from somewhere else in the great big expanse of the universe. When the Big Bang went off and said 10 to the 5th is life sustaining, he's from somewhere totally different. But somehow he moved into an American system and somebody's handing him 10 to the 13th power. Why is that? There's enough Americans. There's enough that had to be adjusted just in an American format. Why are outside of that having any power grabs or power shifts? I'm just curious.
College. It was, again, the upper limits of my ambition were, sometimes around my environment. So it really expanded the universe for me. And so as I think about
He even uses my words.
how we can do that for more students, especially around how we're suffering so much through the emotional trauma of COVID, this is what we need inside our schools.
When you talk about removing barriers, what kind of barriers
That's
are being
according to
pushed
10 to the
aside because of
13th
donations
power.
like this?
Oh,
But life
what this
sustaining on
allows
this
us
planet
do
is supposed to be
really, as
somewhere
our
around
name
10 to
says,
the
bring
5th,
a
or
community
so
support
the
inside
humans
our schools to empower students to
put up
not
on
just graduate
some
from school, but achieve in life.
MaxiPad
And so some of
internet
those
and
barriers
algorithm
for
did to
students
my
who have lost a caretaker,
Google
whose
feed,
family
whatever
member
that
may have lost a
means.
job, creating instability. Those are problems that sometimes surface in schools in outbursts, or students who have their heads down, living just below the surface. Those are those conflicts that if we don't address students can't get turned on to learning unless they're turned on to living. And the living is the hard part. And that's what we are there. Everything from food, shelter, to clothing and mental health services. That's what's needed to get these students turned on to learning.
Yeah.
Have you talked to Mackenzie Scott?
No, I haven't.
You haven't talked to her?
What would you say to her?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, the amount of gratitude in my life.
Now, I'm curious because in my life, where was CIS, since they are operating in North America, where were they to remove my barriers my entire life? I'm just curious. Because someone removed Mark King from my grasp for husbandry. I know he was there, and then he wasn't. Someone removed Nicklaus from my grasp. So who keeps considering Mark King and Nicklaus in Scandinavian things? Who keeps removing them from my grasp and considering them a barrier when they're not? I mean, the whole system is off in some power grab, power shift. There are specific exponents that are life-sustaining, depending on how it's explained. And then there are clear denominational gifts or power shifts that are completely unacceptable, but yet they seem to take place. This one happens to be spotlighted, SPOTLIGHTED. But I have no idea how many of them go undetected. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. I mean, look at how the light is literally from here coming through my head. I can see the lines here. In whatever this light is considered. Is it palladium? I don't know. Is it X-ray technology? I don't know. It used to be sunlight, but that was when I didn't have light pollution and I could see constellations. It's been steadily getting worse the further the drift in things that are really hard to explain. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.